There is a little known problem that may be the very reason why you're dealing with chronically worsening fatigue, brain fog, irritability, low libido, mood swings, problems with your gut like bloating, constipation, even sensitivities to foods that you used to eat perfectly fine. In some cases, even unexplained hair loss. That problem is a term that we have coined as pre-thyroid. Just like people develop pre-diabetes, sometimes years before they develop type 2 diabetes, patients, and now at a much greater rate, are developing what we have coined as pre-thyroid. This is different than the commonly talked about issue of subclinical hypothyroidism, which typically is more based on changes in lab work that don't really present in symptoms to the patient. This problem is actually the opposite. So, pre-thyroid patients present a lot of low thyroid symptoms, yet when they get checked for thyroid issues, they are told that everything is completely normal. Now, the first thing is I want to give you an expanded idea on how to understand if, in fact, you are developing pre-thyroid, what to look for, what are some key signs and indications. And after that, I'm also going to spend time in helping you understand exactly what it is that leads to pre-thyroid and eventually to the condition and disease of hypothyroidism. So, in the event you are early on, not only can this information help you figure out how to come out of the symptoms and get the right help, but also how to prevent this moving into a disorder where you would have to be medication dependent for the rest of your life. So let's get started. My name is Dr. Ruben Valdes. I'm a 3 times published author in the field of functional medicine and an international speaker in all things thyroid and autoimmunity. So, the first thing is, how can you tell if the symptoms that you're experiencing are coming from pre-thyroid? So, the first thing that we can do is just a visual examination. Okay, about 80 to 90% of people that are developing pre-thyroid are developing it because they are in the early stages of an autoimmune reaction called Hashimoto's thyroiditis. Okay, you don't get tested for Hashimoto's, never, ever, ever. Even patients that already have a diagnosis of hypothyroidism have never even been screened or checked for one of the most common reasons as to why this disease happens, which is so insane. The justification is that it doesn't change the way that your disease is managed, and hence it's unimportant information. And that just speaks into how broken the healthcare system is, being focused in disease management instead of getting into the root causes of illness. So, um, Hashimoto's can develop years, sometimes even decades, before a person ever reaches hypothyroidism. And for some patients, for some people, one of the earliest signs would be an enlarged thyroid or a degree of thyroid inflammation. How do you know this? Well, it's pretty simple. Take any liquid, it could be your cup of coffee, some water, anything that you have close by, stand in front of the mirror, and you're going to take a swig of fluid. You're going to look up, and as you look up, look into the mirror and swallow. Okay? The thyroid sits right here in the bottom third of your neck. You should really see no difference. You should see just your flat neck. If you see any type of bulging or enlargement or asymmetry, which means a difference from side to side, it means that you may have inflammation of the thyroid, known as either thyroiditis or goiter. So that can be sometimes, it's frequently actually not present, but sometimes it can be present. Number two, the type of fatigue can also be very telling. So, fatigue comes in many different flavors and colors. Sometimes there are people that can experience, for example, afternoon or evening fatigue where they're crashing after 3 or 4 o'clock. Many times that can be related to adrenal hormones, chronic stress, trauma, PTSD. Some patients experience fatigue right after they eat. So 30 minutes to an hour, they get very tired, sleepy, sometimes even want or need to take a nap. That comes from dysglycemia or what's called reactive hypoglycemia, and it has to do with insulin resistance patterns. Fatigue that comes from thyroid is different and it shows up different because it tends to be a little bit more pervasive. So for patients with Hashimoto's, they can go through fluctuations, days where they feel pretty good, and then days where they feel like, for no particular reason, no increased exertion, no increased exercise, no real change, but for unexpected reasons, they feel like the switch just goes off. How can you know? So, number one, something that's very telling is sleeping adequate amount of time, and noticing that regardless of how much you're sleeping, you're waking up still pretty exhausted. Now, given there may be other things that could cause this, if you're not sleeping deeply, if you're not oxygenating or have dyspnea or hypopnea, but if you know that you don't have apnea or any of those problems, and historically you've always rested and felt renewed in the morning, and now you still feel so crashed consistently day in and day out, this is a very strong indicator. Second, you can still get through your day. So when we talk about this type of thyroid fatigue, it's not like you're bedridden or you can't do anything. And that's why sometimes people don't connect it. But it's the sensation that you have to push yourself hard all the time to be able to do what once felt so easy, so natural. As a matter of fact, you never even had to think about energy because it was just always there. It was part of who you were and part of what you did. And so if you're noticing that in order to complete the day and get through your tasks, you're having to continuously push yourself, this is extremely telling of a low thyroid problem, especially if it comes in combination with this next sign, which is brain fog. Brain fog is just that. It is the sensation that the brain cannot focus, that we can't stay on task long enough. And sometimes it can be very embarrassing. Like people have told me that they can be perceived as dumb or they're scared of being at risk in their jobs because they're just not as sharp as they've always been. And sometimes this can result in losing words in conversation. So you have the image of what you want to say, but it's like, oh, the word just doesn't come out. Or starting in your bedroom, knowing that there's something in the kitchen that you need to grab. And as you start that journey and start navigating through the home, something catches your attention, and all of a sudden you pause there and you are like, what was I going to do? Where was I headed? What was I going to grab? And you kind of sit there in a funk trying to figure out what happened, right? Those are all signs of significant brain fog. Now, given this happens once every couple of months, once every 3 months, I mean, that's fine. But if you notice that this is something that is increasing in its frequency and it's becoming more and more consistent, that is a major sign of brain fog. Okay, moving forward, then the third thing that we may want to look at is nails. Okay, I want you to take a moment, look down at your hands, and look at your nails. Now, every single one of you should have this little half moon. It's that white half circle that's at the base of your nail. That is the active growth site. That is the place where the nail is growing because it's receiving signaling to continue to grow. As a matter of fact, nails are one of the things that should continue to grow even post mortem. After we die, they still grow for a little bit, which is really interesting. So if you look at that nail and there is no half moon, you don't have that circle in every single one of your fingers, that may be a sign that there's not enough T3 active thyroid hormone driving those functions in your body. Okay, the next sign that I want to also talk about is changes in mood. So let's say that normally you've been pretty good throughout your life in managing stress, conflict, differences, feedback, criticism, but all of a sudden you just can't handle it. The emotions that emerge in you are too explosive, too reactive, too overwhelming, too difficult, too painful, and you just can't hold it together. And so the emotion bursts out of you and you become more irritable, whether you're an explosive person or whether you just hold it in and suppress it and hold on to it and just tenses up your body day in and day out. This is a sign that something has changed in your brain chemistry. And thyroid hormone is incredibly important at managing brain chemistry, neurotransmitters like acetylcholine, dopamine, and serotonin, leading to the next sign, decreased affect. Now, this is not depression because most of these pre-thyroid patients see a lot of reasons to live. They're very hopeful. They understand that life is good. They're surrounded by love, by kids, by family members, or by a great career, or whatever it may be. But they just can't feel the same level of joy, contentment, excitement, the intensity of those positive emotions just seems to kind of wither, like, and that's called decreased affect. Sometimes some of them will report just being very sentimental, just very small things setting off deep emotion. I remember years ago, a lady, and I never forget the story. She told me, Doc, I don't know what's going on with me. The other day, I was sitting at home watching TV, and a cat commercial came on, a commercial for cat food. And I started crying my eyes out. I was like, the cats, they're so beautiful. They're hungry. She didn't even know what was happening to her. So unexplained changes in emotion like that are called decreased affect, and they're quite common. Now, there is a lot of reasons why you never figure out why you have this problem. And after I finish with the signs and symptoms, I'm going to talk to you about why the testing is so flawed. And you can go to your doctor 100 times telling them the same stuff, and you're going to get dismissed and gaslit every single time. They're going to say, no, your TSH looks fine. There's no problem here. There's no issue. It's probably you're getting older, or you're depressed, or it's your perimenopause or menopause for those of you that are around there, or you're just a couch potato. You got to eat better, exercise more, blah, 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 blah. So gaslighting championship is what low thyroid and pre-thyroid patients actually go through. So what is the next sign? The next sign is the gut. Active thyroid hormone is extremely important in signaling to the gut something called peristalsis, the movement of food through the gut. When it's low, food is going to move much slower through the gastrointestinal tract. This is going to create a persistent feeling of bloating, a fullness, a fermentation. It can lead to constipation, and that opens the door for a million other problems. In our practice, we talk about a lot about the importance of belonging to the triple platinum ABP club. What is that club? It's the always be pooping club, because emptying regularly, minimum one day a week, once a day or twice a day, ideally. Ask your gastro; they'll tell you that it's so, because it's our primary method of detoxification. So when we're not emptying every single day, at least once or twice, we're building up toxins, we're fermenting, we're overgrowing bad bacteria in our gut, and the gut is becoming more and more permeable, leading you to more and more severe illness, including worse fatigue. So just leaky gut itself is a huge source of chronic fatigue for a lot of patients. Okay? So Moving on, the next one is hair. Okay, so there's a couple of things that you can look for in hair. Number one, is it thinning? Is it sometimes it's not even falling yet, but it may be thinning and losing its thickness and volume. Sometimes it's getting more delicate, and it kind of breaks off easier, even if it's not yet coming off from the root. And for some of you, you may be seeing significant hair loss, and almost to the point where parts of the scalp are starting to become visible. You know, it can be very problematic and really scary too. And so another sign, and this is now usually more into deeper levels of hypothyroidism. So not typically for pre-thyroid, but with deeper levels, you're going to see thinning on the outer third of the eyebrow. So the outer third of the eyebrow may have less than they have typically had. Another important sign of low T3 can be a lot of achiness in joints. And I see this all the time. There's patients that all of a sudden they start getting really achy and they feel that they can't recover that well after exercise. And so that what we find in 99.9% of those patients is that they're going to have a functionally low T3 and or a functionally low free T3 or T3 uptake. Okay. The next very important sign and symptom that I think often gets heavily overlooked is also skin. So T3 is an important signal to your skin to produce hydration and oils. If you notice yourself putting on cream and it gets sucked up in a few hours and then you're back at dryness, most of the time that is low thyroid. It's a pre-thyroid symptom. So why is it that problems like this can be so prevalent? They can be so rampant and they're increasing. We believe right now that 3 out of 5 women over the age of 60 already have thyroid hormone deficiency, whether it's by a primary condition like Hashimoto's, or whether it's from some of the secondary problems that we're going to talk about that cause poor conversion of T4 to T3 or poor absorption of that hormone at the level of the cell. And then for those women that are less than 60, right now it's estimated that possibly 2 out of every 5 may be dealing with low thyroid hormones. And the problem is becoming ever increasing. Why are our women becoming more and more tired? Why are women becoming less and less focused? Why are our women becoming less and less engaged in intimacy, in their ability to hold a relationship and have greater emotional stability? Well, the secret for many of them is found in pre-thyroid, in this low T3 type of pattern. So let's get into some of the reasons for a second. Number one, it should be important to mention this is the work of Dr. Bianco. He was the previous president of the American Thyroid Association and a strong proponent of the concept and the idea that the way that low thyroid and hypothyroidism and these conditions that lead up to low thyroid are managed are very, very poor. And so he's been very outspoken about his ideas, together with other experts too, like Dr. Datis Karazian, among just a few of the heavy hitters in this field. So we now know that after the age of 40, especially these days, because we're exposed to so many toxins and so much gunk in our environment, T3 levels, which is active thyroid levels, decrease after the age of 40 for both females and men. It happens to both. And that doesn't mean that the thyroid itself is sick or that they have hypothyroidism. For many of them, it means that they are not able to properly convert the hormone that the thyroid makes, which is inactive, into its active form called T3, and they start experiencing symptoms. But again, the testing is so incomplete that it never gets picked up. And you have this individual who's otherwise capable, talented, smart, successful, right? And they're living at 50% of their capacity. Okay, so this is one very common reason. Another reason is when there are changes in other hormones. So there's a very important protein called thyroxine binding protein, and it moves thyroid hormone to everywhere it needs to go. It's like the school bus. When there are drops in hormones like estrogen or testosterone, the amount of that protein will drop, and there's less of that school bus to move thyroid hormone to the places where it needs to go. And it can lead to these pre-thyroid conditions without ever really being detected or picked up conventionally. Another common issue that may happen is also when a person has chronic inflammation. So there are very important markers for inflammation, like highly sensitive C-reactive protein, homocysteine, and there's others that sometimes we cannot pick up or detect right away from blood chemistry, but there are other signs of inflammation in the body. But inflammation causes cells to not be able to receive hormone signaling properly. And that is called thyroid hormone resistance. That can be caused by infection, like in the gut, toxins, chronic stress can all drive thyroid hormone resistance. Speaking of stress, some people that are chronically stressed begin to convert their hormone into a poor form of T3 or an inactive form of T3 called reverse T3. And reverse T3 doesn't fit in the receptor. It doesn't do anything to the cell. And so sometimes you may actually be showing a normal T3, even an optimal T3 level, but the type of T3 that you're making is not optimal or ideal. And so there's many other pathways and patterns. I don't want to keep spending more time on this, but I want you to understand this. Pre-thyroid is very real, and it is a thief. It steals beauty. It steals life, vitality, livelihood. It steals relationships. It steals intimacy. It steals good quality time with our kids, with the people that we love. And it is being completely ignored. And if you're interested in learning more about this, follow us or visit our website at thethyroidplace.com.